Good afternoon. It is Nancy Juetten, and today is a very special day because it's time for the Learn More to Earn More show. And my very special guest today is none other than Steve Sims, the author of BlueFishing, The Art of Making Things Happen. Welcome, Steve.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited you're here. And for those of you who are joining us live, go ahead and let us know that you're joining us live. Let us know how excited you are to meet this modern day Wizard of Oz. And I want to tell you a little bit about him. I love this. As someone who writes bios for people who struggle saying who they are, I didn't have to really work too hard to find out anything about you because your bio is so much fun. It says here, are you searching for graceful messages to soothe your weary soul? Are you craving gentle insights that whisk you beyond challenges and obstacles? Are you longing for someone pious to take you by the hand and lead you to enlightenment? Well, if so, then do yourself an epic favor and stay away from Steve Sims, because that ain't what you're going to get. In a world loaded with self-described motivational gurus who are far, far more interested in your cash than your consciousness, he refuses to compromise his principles, which he'll tell you a little bit more about. Many speakers who claim to be onions wrapped in mystical and magical layers of enigmatic meaning have their metaphors mixed up because they're typically nothing more than smoke and mirrors, or get too close, or it's all style and no substance. Steve ain't no onion. So I think as we get to know you better through your conversation, I think people will get that you are a really remarkable person, a really straightforward person, a person who cares about disrupting the status quo and doing it in a way that is impossible to duplicate. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, you've set me up at a very high level. So there's people joining us now that are going to have expectations. So thank you for putting more stress on me.
Well, alrighty then. So let's kick this thing out of the right out of the gate. What the show is about is guiding entrepreneurs, service-based professionals, speakers, experts, and authors to learn more and earn more. And we are at a time where the world changed quite a bit over the last year because of COVID. I know your business changed a bit and you were anticipating making a change for a couple of years. Why don't we just start right out of the gate with this one? You've been called modern day Wizard of Oz by Entrepreneur and Forbes and a couple of others. Why is that? And what does courage, brains, heart, and not going it alone have anything to do with it?
So I always kind of like smile and grimace at the same time anyone ever brings that up, because Forbes did an article on me, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. And like all major media, if you don't know how the media works, when one person writes an article on you, everyone else wants to continue that article. So you get some good media and all of a sudden you got 10 pieces of media. So it's that kind of thing. But Forbes were the first one. Actually, I think Entrepreneur magazine was the first one that actually said the real life Wizard of Oz. And so Forbes run with it. And if you think of the Wizard of Oz, he was a fraud. He was a guy that stood behind the curtain and actually never had any powers at all, but can like spoke in a deep voice and had all these toys to make himself look powerful. So when it came out, a lot of people, most people were like, oh, you make things happen, which really wasn't what the Wizard of Oz did in the movie. A few of them were like, so you're a fraud? And it was a very funny kind of like mixed feeling when I saw the article and was like, oh my God. But it was basically coined up because I go and find what people need, not what they ask for. And I think that's one of the big problems we have today. People are very superficial. We're in an AI world where we are now used to, we've got triggers and habits where we bark orders and expect to be served by it. Uber Eats, Instagram, Alexa, Siri, Amazon. These are all transactional services that you go, send me some eggs, send me some toilet roll, put the heating on, open the garage door. And you demand and have the expectation for it to happen. Because we're so used to doing it now, it's creeping into our conversation. And so once someone says, oh, I want to go for a holiday and I want to go on the beach, the travel agent goes, great, let me find out all the beach places. That's the wrong answer. Find out, why do you want to be on the beach? When do you want to be on the beach? What's driving you to need to be on the beach? You know, get those questions. I have openly said, I did it in my concierge firm. I do it in my coaching practices now. I don't listen to what you say, or I don't really acknowledge what you ask for. I try to focus on what you need, desire, and lust for. And I'm going to get in there. And that's why I'm a bit aggravating, because I'm kind of like, well, that sounds good, but why? Why is that the goal? Why are we going there? Why are we trying to do it? What's the core reason for you wanting to achieve this? And I go into the reasons behind the transactional question. So that's the first thing. That's how it came about. That's how I can see some similarity to the Wizard of Oz. But I've also been called the Make-A-Wish Foundation for billionaires with big checkbooks. So I've had lots of funny names, some of them polite, most of them not. And then when it comes down to the courage, I can't really answer that. And the reason I can't really answer that is because I think we all have to have courage to do what we need to do and what's necessary. But I think the greater thing that us entrepreneurs have that's bigger, larger, and more powerful than courage is ignorance. And my wife, who, bearing in mind, I will say that I met her, she was 16 and I was 17. She was my first kiss. And she actually said to me that my superpower is ignorance. And she said, I've never overthought anything in my life. Now, as a husband, that's not a compliment, you know? And I thought to myself, I'm in trouble. And I know I've been in trouble over the years by not thinking, but I do rather than think. A friend of mine, Jay Abraham, says I have a greater I can than an IQ. Someone will say to me, hey, should we build a ship? Now, while they're sitting there planning it, I've got the wooden nails out and I'm starting to knock up a ship that's going to sink. But the education I get from that is far greater than your little paperwork. So us entrepreneurs, we're ignorant to the fact that it could possibly go wrong, to the fact that it could possibly sink, to the fact that we are going to get anything other than the yes that we want. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs, yes, we have to have courage. Yes, we have to have passion. Yes, we have to have commitment. But I think a large dose of entrepreneur success is based on the ignorance that it could go any other way than the way that we dreamt it could be.
Oh, I love that. I just love that. So since you mentioned you met your wife when you were your first kiss as a teenager, I mean, today you have this concierge firm that makes billionaires' wishes come true, and you have a thriving coaching practice, and you keynote speak all over the world, and you're also the author of BlueFishing, the art of making things happen. So you've obviously wearing a lot of hats and wearing them well. My question to you is, for those who haven't yet tended to your story, what is the backstory? What is the humble beginning? And how did that shape what you're up to today?
It's a boring story that is exactly like yours. And I mean that for everyone listening. You know, we can sit here and we can name drop. We can talk different countries. We can talk different cities. But I think, and I'm urging you not to do it, but I think if you got a bunch of entrepreneurs together and you sliced them down the middle, I reckon you'd find out there's like a little purple blood cell or a little special piece of DNA or a gene that connects us all. Because as an entrepreneur, have you ever been at home? And I know you have, Nancy. You're at home, you're with your friends, and you're different. You're thinking different. You're envisaging things. You're dreaming about how we could do that, how we could solve that problem. And you want to say these things, but you kind of can't, because your friends may laugh at you, or, you know, they may kind of go, oh, that sounds really funny, Nancy. You go for it. And you're a little bit different and you feel a bit odd. And then you get in a room with other entrepreneurs, and you suddenly realize that all the time you didn't fit in, now that you're in this room, you realize you were never supposed to. And that all entrepreneurs are deviant. We are creative, dysfunctional individuals that have to do something fantastical. That's what we have to do. So I left school at the age of 15. I jumped on my dad's building site because he owned a building site. This was in the 80s and 90s, so I didn't have Facebook and Instagram to show me how inadequate my life was. But there was something inside me that went, is this it? There's got to be something better than this. And so I went off to find it. You know, I ended up launching the concierge firm only for one reason, and that was to surround myself with rich people. I didn't want to surround myself with poor people because I was poor. I knew what that was like, and it sucks, you know? And poor people, they don't spend money, you know? You know full well that if someone spent 10 grand with you, you're going to do a good job. The person that got a deal for $49.99 is the one that's going to bitch at you every hour on the hour for the rest of your freaking life.
Can I just say amen to that and put an underline and a bold face on that? I wish if I could go back to my entrepreneurial journey and get that lesson 10 years earlier, I would be so happy. So say it again so people don't miss it.
I don't have to. They can rewind it. But we had, I went out and I tried to communicate and tried to hang around, much like we do now, where we hang around at masterminds and events to hang around with other kind of like Hogwarts kids, these magicians, these magical people. At the time, I realized I had to change the room I was in. So the concierge firm was just a reason for me to get in a room and ask my rich clients, why are you rich and I'm not? And that was it. You know, I ended up launching a concierge firm. That went on until about 3 years ago. I closed it up. Actually, it still exists, but I'm no longer part of it. And the book came out, and now I coach people how to get out of their own way. See, you were saying about how you wish you'd learned that lesson. There's an old saying that I learned years ago that experience comes 3 seconds after you needed it. So I've noticed that people come to me now and I coach them, and I'm not for everyone. And I ain't pitching you. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, step aside. No harm, no foul. No one's crying. But I've been amazed at how many people will come up with a coaching program, a product, a service. They've planned all of it. And then the next thing they start planning is the payment plan. Okay? Payment plans are the worst thing on the planet. Okay? Unless you're buying a house, a yacht, a car, something like that, payment plans should not be in a product or service.
Someone put that in the chat. Someone put that in the chat. Type that in the chat because that was so good. I love that.
Yeah. When you've got a product and service that solves someone's problem, then market it to people where paying for it will never be a question mark. You know? So that's what I did. I would always go around and I would come up with these magical weekends that were like $300,000 for one weekend in Monaco. And rather than, you know, trying to do it with this guy over here and arrange a 10-year payment plan, I'd go and find a billionaire in Saudi and sell 4. So I always marketed to clients that where price tags would never be a question mark.
I so love that. That brings me to a story I heard you tell. I can't remember in what context, but, you know, sometimes we watch people's Facebook feeds and we see this whole drama unfold about this big life that somebody lives or is portraying is their reality. And us, the gentle viewer, is thinking, boy, if I could just trade places with that guy for 20 minutes. And I remember you telling this story about someone who bought his way to be a New York Times bestseller and hired you to create some big, huge, magnificent event about it. And then it came time for him to make the payment. Do you remember what happened or what he asked you to do?
I remember when he actually asked me to spread the payment over different credit cards. And this was before. Now, here's the thing. you pay me up front. Okay. So I have no payment plans. So I had given the guy an invoice and he came to me and said, can you spread it over like 5 credit cards? Yet there's this guy walking around the planet talking about his new yacht and his new jet and stuff, having to divvy. And it wasn't $1 million invoice that I was giving this guy. It was less than $100,000. And he was splitting it over credit cards. Now, I'm not being dismissive, but you can't portray one thing to one person and have it so distinctly different to the reality. I think today people want that reality. We joked about it earlier. We were having a conversation before we came on here, and we were talking about we've had times in our life where come Wednesday, we were like, crap, it's payday Friday. It's mortgage on Friday. I've got to pay this on Friday. Oh my God. And you go through the next few days of panic. We've all been through that. We know what that's like. So don't try and hide it. I'm stunned today where everyone tries to portray that they don't go to the toilet. They walk on water. They're holier than thou. They've never got any problems. Well, life is a series of problems and shits. It's just a fact, but that's what gives us the fun. That's what gives us the growth. So don't try to make your life look too perfect, because the more I have a joke, I don't know how funny it is for your program, but my little comment is that perfection is a unicorn with 3 blue testicles. It doesn't exist. And so I want people to remember that. And you can quote that.
I love that. Well, so that brings me to it's kind of a fun little segue to personal branding. I mean, you hanging out with these billionaires with yachts and Lamborghinis and watches that, require a level of investment that some people never see. Here you are, this guy with piercings and tattoos and a black t-shirt and jeans, and that's your thing. Like, let's talk about that. Do we do the photo shoot in front of the Tour de France or whatever it is and portray to people that we've got that going on? Or do we just show up as the best us that we know how to be and have that work just as well? What's your take on that?
Well, the problem is they're not showing up. They're showing off. And that was the thing that bothered me. You see, again, let's break it down. You've got a company. You've got a coaching, you've got a book, you've got a whatever you've got out there. And this is to all the people that are watching this. You then try to focus on how to make your brand, your product, your service, your company look as attractive as possible. And I'm here to tell you, stop doing that. Okay? Stop worrying about how pretty you are and start focusing on the solution that you provide. Here's a test for you, Nancy. It's 2:00 in the morning and you've got a headache. Okay, so you get out of bed, you go into the bathroom and you grab your headache tablets and you get that little, box in your hand or the little tablets, cylinder. Look at it. When was the last time you ever went, no, I don't like the logo, I'm not going to use those? Never happened, has it? Because nobody cares what the packaging and website and any of those things look like when you've got a headache at 2:00 in the morning. You just don't care. You care. It solves a problem. So as I started getting into my world, I started noticing that, and this was in the 80s, every luxury brand, Ferrari, galleries, hotels, that you were greeted almost precociously. A lot of the time, I used to laugh about it, almost like a British accent. You'd walk into a gallery in Soho and they'd be like, oh, good afternoon, sir, how are you? What is your taste and your style? I didn't get that kind of bollocks. I'm just here to look at the artwork. If I like it, I'll buy it. Look at all the most successful, affluent people in the planet. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Larry Page, all of these people, Jeff Bezos, all of these people never came from money. Wouldn't know the difference between a Monet and Mickey Mouse, okay? But they can afford to buy the entire block that the gallery is now housed in. The difference was that people reacted to people with money in a precocious manner, which sadly divided and pushed the ability to relate away from the relationship. So I knew that I couldn't compete. I knew that I couldn't look pretty. I knew this was as good as it gets. I knew that I wasn't going to start covering my tattoos, wearing a shirt. And me and you met, when was it, 3 years ago? Something like that. And you met me in a black t-shirt and jeans, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because that's how it's always been. So I decided I'm not going to focus on me. I'm going to focus on you. If I can show up to you and go, hey, Nancy, I know you need something done. This is the solution. Do you want to proceed? Your eyeballs are now on the solution, not on the website, not at this stunningly good-looking Brad Pitt lookalike here. You're now focusing on the solution. So what I teach people to do is don't focus on looking good. Be as good as you can for the client's problem. If you can provide a solution, nothing else matters. The trouble with social media is it's created a platform to become fake. It's become an alter ego. With me, if you go on my, I'm Steve D. Sims everywhere. There you go, shallow plug, knock yourself out. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere. And you'll always see, there's me with a whiskey. There's me on a motorbike. There's me with Elton John. There's me with more whiskey. You know, the bottom line of it is I don't want to confuse you as to who you're dealing with. When people fail to show up and focus on showing off, the person becomes confused. Nobody confused ever opened up that checkbook. So become impossible to misunderstand to your prospects. And I always say that if you've got someone sitting on the fence as to whether or not they're going to do business with you, that's your fault. So be you, show up as you, warts and all, bad hairdo, tattoos, piercings, whatever you like, but be you and let them make the decision.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Since you mentioned social media, there's one of your BlueFishing lessons. You say you can't pay a bar tab with Facebook likes. I love that. And so that's sort of another, people are going after these vanity metrics about this, that, or the other. What are the metrics that really matter? Go on about that.
Oh, it's dead easy. You know, people want to start a business and they focus on the website, the CRM, the payment, the ClickFunnels account. Focus on the client. Because I can tell you, it doesn't matter how good all the rest of it is. If you don't have a client, you don't have a business. That's the end of the conversation. No client, no business. You've got to make sure that you can focus on what's real. The only metrics you care about is the engagement. I don't care how many people like my comments. I care how many people engage with me and start having a conversation. From that conversation, maybe I can help you and we end up coming into coaching, whatever, and we go from there. Okay? But the bottom line of it is engagement rules everything. The likes ain't going to pay your mortgage. It ain't going to pay your bar tab. Get them off of liking your stuff and get them into conversing with you. That's what you want. Engagement is king.
I love that. Now, here's another question. Another lesson from BlueFishing. None of us succeeds alone. We need to build a team so that we don't spend our time doing the things that someone else could do better or at a cheaper rate, so that we can be more in our zone of brilliance. You have this rule about the chug test. Why don't you tell us about what that is and why it matters?
Oh, dear. So this was kind of in a bit of a dark period of mine. I had started collecting people. And in my business, you collect people because they look a certain way, they act a certain way, they're connected a certain way, and you become a collector of what I called payroll. Because at the end of every week, I was paying these people to be in my world. And I suddenly realized I don't know them. In fact, I don't even like half of them, yet I'm paying them every week. So it didn't make sense. So I thought to myself, there's got to be a much easier way of working this out. And I realized that when I'm on my bike and I see someone I like, I pull over and I jump in front of them and I go, hey, Bo, hey, Nancy, hey, Roger, how you doing? Let's go grab a whiskey. And then I thought to myself, can I adopt that philosophy in business? Would it work? And it sounds so extreme, but it does. So what I did was, and this is true, I want you on a piece of paper to write down just the name of everyone in your life, in your business, in your client bank, in your family, in your circle of friends, in your influencers, everyone that plays a role in your world, your accountant, your gardener, your hairdresser, your sales team, everyone. And then ask yourself this question. You're walking up the high street one day and you're on the left-hand side of the road, and on the right-hand side, and there's traffic between you, comes one of those people from that list. It's your hairdresser. It's your mum. It's your friend from high school. It's your top salesperson. Do you, A, quickly look in the window and pretend as though you're really interested in that mattress store because you're considering a new mattress? Check the reflection to see when they've walked past you and then turn around and carry on with your walk? Or do you risk life and limb and run across 2 lanes of traffic to jump in front of them and go, Nancy, let's go grab a coffee? If it's not B, get them off that piece of paper. Put a line through them. I realized there were so many people in my life by doing that I would not want to have a whiskey with. I would not want to run across traffic with. Now, people go, oh, but it's your accountant. You don't have to like them. I don't have to like them, but I have to be able to relate to them. I have to be able to understand them. I have to be able to connect and communicate with them. And that is a good thing. So I literally went through my life like that. Now, you also heard me mentioning that lineup, family members. They say you can't choose your family. You know, you will find that there's people in your world that you've got a very tight connection with because I went to school with them. Oh, I've known them for 20 years. Doesn't mean they're nice people. It just means that you put up with them for 20 years, you know? So I realized that luckily very early on, I was about 40 years old, that I went, I ain't going to do that anymore. And, you know, my life's too short. All of our lives are too short. If I don't want to run across 2 lanes of speeding traffic to jump in front of someone and to go and have a whiskey with them, I don't want them in my world. It made me happier. And we were talking about contentment earlier, about the houses and things. When you're content and when you're happy, do you know people can pick up on it? It's like when you've got a dog barking at another dog. They may be barking, but if there's no aggression between the bark, they'll end up just sniffing each other's tush, and that's it. But when there's anger,
that's when they're finally communicating. That's what my husband often says. He says, we're not fighting, we're communicating.
Bingo, bingo. And that's the problem. And that's the thing about people. If we are genuinely content, yearning for adventure, yearning for engagement, yearning for challenges, then we engage people that want to be part of that circle. But when we're desperate, when we're not being true to ourselves, how can we be true to the prospect? And they pick up on that. And that's where you hear people say it smells of desperation. We're a lot smarter with our senses and with our gut reaction than our eyeballs. Our eyeballs today look at your Instagram post and they go, that's beautiful. That's a nice yacht. You must be rich. I want to do business with you. That's your eyeballs making a decision. And today, we can't trust them, okay? Trust your gut, trust your ears, trust your nose, trust your senses. They're far smarter than your eyeballs.
So good, so good. So you ran this very successful concierge company 2.5 years ago, before COVID was even a glint in anyone's eye. You made this transition to this coaching company. You become this fairly well sought after keynote speaker. If you were to reflect on the biggest learn more, earn more lessons that you've gleaned from having made those shifts? What would they be?
Oh, hell.
Because it's not been easy for a lot of people this last year in particular.
God, no. God,
Right?
no. But I'm kind of happy about that. Because here's the funny thing. I spent 25 plus years dealing with billionaires and millionaires. Richest people, kings, queens, royalties, dictators. I've dealt with all. And I watched a lot of them as to see how they responded to things. And I noticed one common thing between all successful people. Now, I've now gone into successful rather than monetary. You can't earn the money without being successful. And unless you've got this mentality, you'll never have the money. So I'm giving it to you now and telling you what you need to do that I've noticed from everyone else. Successful people fail often, and lean into it. Unsuccessful people lean back from a failure, hold their head, cry, sob, drink themselves stupid, moan and whinge, and then start serving McDonald's the following day. You see, successful people, they learn into where things went wrong to look for the education. You don't get education from being successful. It's a day. If you're making money and your keynote and you're here, you're doing all of that. Those are the fruits of you planting the seeds. Okay. But what you've got to understand is that whenever anything goes wrong, that's the hub of education. Okay. That's where you lean in and go, where did that go wrong? And the beauty about COVID's been an amplifier. Now, if I'm in a bad mood, and I've obviously learned over the years, but when I was younger, I didn't. If you were in a bad mood and you drank alcohol, did it make you happier or did it make you sadder? If you were already in a bad mood?
Worse.
If you were in a happy, giddy mood with all of your mates and someone opened up a bottle of wine and you were already happy, did it make you happier or did it make you sadder?
Happier.
You see, alcohol is an amplification to the mood you're already in. COVID is that alcohol. COVID is that cocktail. If your business was already teetering on vulnerability and you had issues with your marketing and you had issues with this and you had problems with your copy and your distribution was a mess, COVID just amplified your problems. If you had a bad relationship at home with your wife or your husband and you are now with them in their pocket for 365 days, it amplified the good, but it also amplified the bad.
Mm-hmm.
I like COVID. COVID's cost me money, cost me businesses, cost me relationships. And I say thank you because it saved me 5 years to come to the same decision.
Oh.
And I remember a friend of mine, Tucker Max, said that he knew he loved his family, but he didn't realize how much he liked them. And I've been with my family every single day. Now, I won't book a call now, and we're coming out of COVID now, and everything's getting busier again. But halfway through COVID, I was getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning to answer podcasts and media and client calls from all over the world. 10 o'clock now. My first appointment, never earlier than 10. Because what's more important than doing a podcast or an interview or speaking with a client is having coffee and breakfast with my wife every single day. And that's what we do. So we never do anything before 10 o'clock now. I think COVID has amplified what you already had, the good and the bad. I think you need to own up to it. I think you need to realize it. I think you need to be thankful for it. And here's the thing that it's done for us. It's empowered us. You see, when we have been making money, when we have stayed upbeat, when we have stayed focused, you see, when COVID came across, It did one thing. It picked us all up and it dropped us in a stadium and it said, play the game. We didn't know what the rules of the game was. We didn't even know how long the game was going to be going for. There were those people that stood in the middle of the field and went, let's make the game up. And then there were others that run to the sidelines and said, okay, what can we binge watch on Netflix? There were those two types of people. If you're sitting there proud that you've watched the entire season of Desperate Housewives on Netflix, congratulations to you. Never call me. But if you're the ones that have stood there and gone, hey, I'm my own game, it sucked, but hey, I stood up there. I gave it all. I did this. I did that. Then those are the people I want to communicate with. I think it's created a divide. And for all of you out there that have gone, hey, COVID happened for me, not to me. Okay? Big difference. Sean Stevenson taught me that.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah. Sean, great guy. Rest in peace, Sean. If you are the person that said, no, hang on. I played what I could. I developed my relationships. I did the best I could. You're one of the empowered ones. Now, you were already a misfit prior to COVID. It's just established that you've now got the cape of misfits. And you should relish in that. You should relish in the fact that you got through a pandemic that never in any of our life has anything affected anybody in the planet. You can bump into someone in Timbuktu, in Tennessee, in Taiwan, in Thailand, and all have a conversation about COVID, and you'll all know what you're talking about. There's never been a period in our life, not war, not recession, where the entire world has been captivated by the same single issue. And you should relish in it.
I love that. Well, in my case, I decided to pivot my business and serve speakers, experts, and authors that needed to raise their voice without leaving their house. And I ended up reigniting a business that has brought me an incredible amount of joy and a lot of impact with a lot of clients around the country. And I always go back to this rule that I have is outside of any economic gain, am I proud of myself? Did I do a good job? Did I turn lemons into lemonade? Did I learn something? Did I grow in some way? And I think that while moving to a new town in the middle of COVID-19 isn't the best opportunity to create community in your own backyard, I'm really grateful to Zoom and BeLive.tv and other technologies that allows me to be nose to nose and eye to eye with people like you to help elevate my thinking. So yeah, I'm very grateful for all the reframing that's been done during this time. Let's talk a little bit about habits. I know that you really are passionate about your motorbikes and you love a good whiskey and an old fashioned to finish the day. You've also revealed that you don't start your day until 10 o'clock, but what other habits do you have that fuel your success? And what are the habits you suggest your clients embrace so that they can succeed also?
I schedule, being an entrepreneur, we all have shiny object syndrome. We're all sitting there and it's like squirrel and we're gone, we get very easily distracted. So what I do is I schedule a lot. In fact, here's a test for you. Anyone watching this, get out your iPhone, open up your calendar, and look at your month, your entire month. And in your month, you may have client calls, you may have Zoom meetings, you may have prospect meetings, you may have your accountant, your dentist, your doctor, your life insurance agent. You've got all of these meetings. Most of them aren't fun. Most of them are work. How many meetings do you have during that month are for have breakfast with the family, go kick a ball with the kids, go play bike, go to the movies, go and have a picnic? How many of those are in there? So what I do is I actually make sure that I schedule time. I've already told you up until 10 o'clock, it's off the table, wife only. But we literally have days during the week where we plan, we're going down to the beach for tacos. We're going to go, and it's just a cheap ass taco stand. We ride over there on the motorbikes, buy a few tacos, eat the tacos, ride home again, taking an hour and 20 minutes out of our day because thankfully we live close to the beach. And that's it. But it's been a change of scenery, connecting with the family, you know? And you've got to start focusing on that. My habits are what makes my life smile. You see, a lot of people don't realize that
I love that. My habit is what makes my wife smile.
My life smile.
Oh, that's nice.
And I believe that you threw me off my curve there. I believe that we do what we do so we can do what we want to do. Too many people, they live for work rather than the other way around. We work to live. We work to give our family security. We work to be able to afford that restaurant, that taco, that black t-shirt, that holiday in Florence. We work to live, not the other way around. And if you look at your calendar and you go, shit, I'm working and I'm living to work, then you've got it ass backwards. And isn't that why we became entrepreneurs? So that we could be at home, we could do this, we could do what we wanted to do. And then around that, build the lifestyle that can actually pay for our life.
You know, my husband, I mentioned to you that our home was burglarized, and there's been illnesses and challenges and things like that for all of us, But I think where we came out on it is, let's put more life in our years instead of years in our life. And I think that COVID really brought that into focus for all of us. I mean, we really don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So we better as well make sure today is a good one, and that we're putting some magic in our day, as well as the work that we have to do to appreciate the magic. I was reading a book not long ago called Atomic Habits. And it's a really good book, but there's things that you really love to do, that you're really good at, that feel like magic to you because it's so easy. And there's other things that maybe aren't that much fun, but you can't succeed unless you work hard at that. And so what the book said is, once you've done some of that lead generation or tried to get yourself booked on podcasts, or you put some time in that, you get to do that thing that you love to do, which is to write or to speak or to this or to that. That really made sense to me. Now, I want to ask you a couple questions about podcasting and podcast guesting, because there are a lot of people in this group that want to podcast guest more. They're probably thinking about creating their own shows. They're wondering whether or not they can ever earn a chance to be interviewed by someone like you or someone like the people that you work with. So I always like to ask this question, because I know it's very specific, but having interviewed so many guests on your own show, there are some guests who are good on the air, and there are some guests who are not. What would you say to people that want to be a great guest on the air? What should they do? How should they show up?
All right. So, okay. Step one, show up. Okay. Don't show off. I don't want to hear about all of your products in the first 30 seconds of the interview. I don't want to hear about a special discount that you're going to offer my listeners. I don't want any of that. I'm not going to do it on anyone else's show. I don't want you doing it on mine. I want you to show up. I want you to validate, and I want you to be a solution. What I want is for someone to be listening to this podcast in the gym, at the car, or in the car, doing the gardening, whatever, and then going, do you know this guy? I like the way he thinks. I'm going to reach out to him. I'm not going to be giving you a website where you can sign up in the next 7 hours where there's a 50% discount. That doesn't exist. I want you to understand, hang, is this the kind of person I want to deal with? Does this person have the solution to my problem? When you are a guest, you are not there for you. It is not a vanity metrics. No one cares about you until you show you care about that problem and that you've got a solution to it. Okay? So that's what you got to focus on. You got to focus on exactly that single piece of material. When you want to go on someone's show, do a bit of research for the show you're going to, and then go, hey, I know that you deal with these clients. I know that you deal with this demographic. I know you deal in this industry. I've got an angle that can help your listeners. Not, hey, I can get more people to listen to you, or hey, we can do a joint venture. I've got something that will impact your tribe, your community, and I believe help them get over a certain hump. Be there for the listener. That's the same as speakers. I hate the way speakers go on stage and they're all like, me, look at me. I'm absolutely wonderful. I've never been to the toilet in my life. I am awesome. You know, no one cares. Okay. Go in there to the audience and go, let's solve this problem so you can walk out of here with impact. Let's do this so you can walk out of here and make more money by doing less. Because way too many people, we're busy doing the shit we shouldn't be doing. Okay? So basically, addition by subtraction. Focus on the user, focus on the ears, focus on the attendees and the tribe, and contact the podcast with your message, your solution to that tribe. Be there to serve. Don't go on there as a pitch fest. Buy an advert or do Facebook adverts for that, but don't do it on a podcast. I had one guy do it on my podcast. We got to about 4 minutes. I had told him that I was going to reset. So we reset. And I said, I don't want you doing a pitch fest. And he thought he was being subtle and he went into it again. And so I ended it and I said, look, we're going to end it there. And he's like, no, I can. I said, no, I told you once. I'm not here to repeat myself. You're done. And just turned him off. We don't want it. We don't want to hear it.
Thank you so much.
That means if you head to this website in the next 4 minutes.
You know, it kind of reminds me, I used to own a public relations agency, and I'd have these authors and experts that would really want to sell more books or something. And they would go onto the show and they'd be carrying the book with them. And they'd say, if you buy my book, and the host is going like, oi, like, can't you, let's talk about what's awesome about the book. Let's talk about the chug test. Let's talk about, I want to tell you one cool success that I had following one of your tips, because I think this is super cool. Well, there's two actually, but I'm going to just focus on one. You talked about in your book that the power of a handwritten note could really open a lot of big doors. And you talked a lot about stamps and how you could do custom stamps that would really be meaningful. And you also talked about how the index finger is the greatest arbiter of all. Delete, delete, delete. I think the words you said were, it takes 2 hands to open an envelope, but only 1 to hit delete. It really hit me squarely between the eyes. So I was working with this finance company. It was a very big finance company, and I wanted to talk to the president and CEO of this very big finance company. And I did a little homework, and I found out that she was a marathon runner. And she was going from the Boston Marathon to the next marathon to the next marathon. And it was her long distance running that was really a metaphor for how she had succeeded so brilliantly in her career. So I wanted to get her attention. So I followed one of the tips in your book, and I bought special stamps about the Boston Marathon. And I put them on the outside of the envelope, and I put extra ones on the inside. And I made some comment about what an amazing accomplishment that she had achieved, and warm and fuzzy goody stuff like that. And would she consider taking a meeting, because I had this bright idea that I thought could be of value to her community. And I just sort of sent a magic dust on it and put it in the mailbox. And like 3 days later, she called me. And I thought, oh my God. So talk to us about bar tab menus that you send to people around the world and what doors that opens for you.
Well, basically, the shortcut of it is you've got to do everything in the 80s that you don't do now. Okay. And one of the things I started doing was I travel a lot. I like traveling. But even if you don't travel, you can do this by just visiting any good quality hotel in your area. Okay. You don't have to be the one traveling. And you go into the hotel and you say, hey, I'm going to be making some notes to my clients. I need some stationery. High-end hotels want you using that stationery because it's free advertising for them, okay? So you get some stationery, you get some envelopes, and then you handwrite on the front, and then you put on the stationery, hey, Nancy, we haven't spoken for a while. Text me and let's get a call going, or just something like that. And you send it out. And people like this because they don't know what's in it. What's it going to do? All this kind of stuff. And then I took it a little bit further because people know I'm an alcoholic. And I would travel around and you get like the cocktail of the day on this bar. And I said to them, oh, I really like that. Do you have? And they were like, yeah, we got, like 30 of these sheets. And I was like, give them to me. And I would literally just write on them going, next time you're in Florence, you've got to try this drink. It's amazing. Now, the hotels love you for doing that. And I've actually gone to hotels going, hey, I've got 200 clients and I want to send them this menu. Can you send me 200 of these menus, to my, and they've done it because you're now, and I scribble across it going, and there'll be a big circle on one of the items. Oh, I love this. You'll love it next. And just something so simplistic to stay in contact. Now, how much does it cost you? Hasn't cost you for the letter, hasn't cost you for the envelope that's now got an emblem of a hotel on it. The curiosity when a client suddenly gets an envelope going, who the hell do I know from Detroit, from LA, from Florence, from Rome? The curiosity creates openness to take everything in. You're not selling them anything. You're staying in contact. And there was a company, they sadly went pop, called stamps.com. And you could actually upload a picture and print off stamps. And I used to have like little pictures of me with like a glass of whiskey, or I would take a picture of you from Facebook and stick your face on the stamp and send you a letter with you as the stamp. And then just like you said, inside, and here's the rest of the stamps for you to use. Just something so silly that shows that you think differently. You react and connect differently. That's what people want to know you do today. You're not a transaction. You're a connection. You're an asset, not an invoice. These are the things you should be focusing on today.
Oh, I love that. You're an asset, not an invoice. Well, I want to say that this has just been such a rousing, fun conversation packed with so much value. If you are listening live now and you've loved this talk, won't you please post a comment in the chat and let us know what you thought about this wonderful conversation? Steve, I know that you have a Facebook group. You have these speakeasy events. You also have something about the distillery. And of course, you have the BlueFishing book that's available for purchase on Amazon. If people have fallen in love with your distinct, disruptive, fun point of view, and they want to take one more step closer in your direction, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, if they want to actually be able to get to interact with me a minimum of twice a month, then the easiest, cheapest route is to go to simsdistillery.com. But if they want to join my world and just kind of like check me out a little bit more, find out if I've put this on and to find out if this is really me or if it's made up, I have a free Facebook group called An Entrepreneur's Advantage with Steve Sims. So, just kick around, find out, stare, stalk, voyeur, find out if I really can like fit your role. And if I do, step up and let's converse. But Steve, or any of those things I've just mentioned.
Very, very good. Well, is there any parting thoughts you want to share as we wrap this up with a big red bow and a theoretical old fashioned?
Yeah, let's probably quote my dad. My dad wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed by any means. But I remember one day when I was a kid and we're walking through a building site and he smoked a lot. He had literally 2 cigarettes going at the time.
Wow.
And he put his hand on my shoulder. I was like 14, 15 years old. And he said to me, he said, son, no one ever drowned by falling in the water. They drowned by staying there. And then he took his hand off my shoulder and carried on walking. And I remember being that age and going, what the hell was that? But I realized as an entrepreneur, we fall in the water a lot. But it's our choice as to whether or not we stay there and drown.
I love that. Thank you, Rita Robison, for your comment. And what fun. I like the emphasis on helping people rather than being wrapped up in yourself. Tara Paley says, what a disruptor. She also says, let's see what else she says here. I like the invitation to stalk his Facebook group. This was great, Nancy. You're a great interviewer and can match paces with any of the best of them. Thank you so much. If you have loved this interview and you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and hit that red subscribe button so you're first to see any interviews that I do with these disruptors and movers and shakers and people that I'm finding the courage to reach out and ask to be on my show. If you are not yet a member of the Raise Your Voice, Make Your Impact Facebook group, come on over and join about 1,800 speakers, experts, authors, and aspiring podcast guests who want to raise their voice, make their impact, and make money every step of the way. Steve is a member of the group, and so are some other movers and shakers, and the connections that happen in this group are bar none amazing. The link to visit for that is getknowngetpaid.com/group. And I would just say red fish, blue fish, yellow fish. This is the book that really did change a lot of things for me. I'm so glad I got to meet you in person at that special master's event a few years ago. And I'm so pleased that you would say yes to doing this interview. I so appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing what great things can come as people embrace the advice that you shared today. Thank you so much, Steve.
It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now.
There you go.
Thank you so much.